always love knowing what seven-figure earners are doing in their businesses so that I can emulate some of those things in my pursuit of being a seven-figure earner someday. Allea Grummert from Duett joins me in this interview to talk about what seven-figure earners are doing regarding email marketing. She brings 7 mistakes to the table, and not just the mistakes, but the solutions to those mistakes regarding email marketing. She talks through how people underwelcome new subscribers and how to take care of that in a really seamless way. She also talks about not having a welcome sequence. That's a huge mistake that a lot of people make, and failing to personalize your content and other mistakes inside the episode. Tune in. I hope you enjoy it. It is episode number 659. Allea, welcome back to the podcast. How have you been? How's it going?
It is so good. Thank you for having me on again.
So excited. You're like the guru for email marketing. So I always love having conversations with you. This is such a relevant topic in our space. As you know, everyone wants to just devour email information. So thank you for being here.
Yeah. Happy to deliver all that information.
So excited to chat about this. To start, do you have another fun fact to share?
Yes. So I grew up in a town of 118 people.
What?
In rural Nebraska.
Okay, what is the town? Where is this place?
It's called Jansen, Jansen.
Okay.
And then I would drive 10 miles to school and work, and the pool and softball and all of that and Walmart were all 10 miles away. But my little town is technically a village. And one of the things that's so cute is that we kind of have our own lingo of like, if I'm going uptown, I'm going to like Main Street Jansen, which, believe it or not, there is a Main Street. But if I'm going in town, I'm going into Fairbury, which is the bigger town where everything happens. So that's been funny, like introducing like an ex-boyfriend to this city. I was like, oh no, we need to get this lingo correct. When you say in town, it means this, and uptown means this. And he's
that
like,
is
okay,
so funny.
I think I'm tracking. So, and my parents have lived in the same house my whole life. It's an old farmhouse that they moved in from the country next door to my grandparents. And so it's pretty idyllic for a kid.
Oh, that's so cute. I love it. I grew up in rural Iowa, so I can we're not that small, but I can relate to the small and kind of that lingo that when people come visit, they're like, wait, what did you just say? And here's one thing that we would do that people got a kick out of. So when you're driving down, the cobblestone street in Manning, Iowa, and you see somebody come, like you pass a car, you do your hands are on the steering wheel and you do a finger.
Wave.
Yeah, a finger wave, like one or two, it doesn't matter. And I had so many friends who were like, what are you doing? Just a finger? Like, what is that? Like, it's a wave.
It's a wave. We do that in Nebraska too.
Do you?
Super common. 100%. Okay. Yeah. I love it. Well, and then the bigger town was only like 4,000. So it's still a pretty like small community.
The big town, 4,000
the big
people,
town into town. That's where the store was. You know, did you ever have it where you say like, do you need anything from the store?
Yeah.
In my mind, I don't know why I've never needed clarification, but then I have friends from the city. They're like, what type of store? And I was like, excuse me.
The store. Come on.
The store. The store where the things are.
Yeah. We had one store as well. So the store was very clear. Yeah. I love it. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, one more question about that. Is it eastern or western Nebraska?
Eastern, southeast Nebraska.
Okay.
So pretty close to Kansas, actually. I grew up 7 miles from where the Oregon Trail passed through.
Oh,
I know. And then like probably 10 miles from the Kansas border. And then my mom is from Kansas. So northeast Kansas, I'm a little familiar with as well, and kind of claim it as part of my upbringing as well.
Nice. Oh, yeah, Allea. Okay, we're both rural Minnesota. We're rural Midwestern girls.
Yes, I love that we found that. I found out we had that in common.
I know. I'll do the finger wave to you next time I see you in person.
please do.
Okay, you are here to talk about not rural Nebraska, but email marketing. You are a strategist and you do all kinds of awesome things for people in the email world. And you are bringing to the table 7 common email marketing mistakes from seven-figure earners. Is that right?
Yes. And the solutions to fix them, where we'll talk
And how to
about.
fix it. We're not just going to talk about the problems. We'll tell you how to fix them too.
Exactly.
But first, tell us a little bit about Duett if people don't know about it yet.
Yeah, so I run Duett. I started it by myself in 2018, and now I have a small team, but I consider myself a strategist, a copywriter, and a tech expert. And then I have a team that supports me to do done for you services for my clients. So we specifically write and set up welcome and nurture sequences for our clients. So the way I explain that is as people are coming into your ecosystem or they're joining your email list, how are we best introducing them to the content that you have, who you are as a creator, what sets you apart from just like another recipe that they found on Pinterest or on Google. And so how do we keep them coming back for more? And that starts with them having a really good understanding of who you are, how you're going to help them, and what some of your best content is that they are just going to absolutely love coming right in the door.
Awesome. And you just started a podcast as well that aligns with all of this, correct?
I do have a podcast. I'm so happy. It's called Happy Subscribers. So we talk about email marketing strategy for like bloggers, small businesses, like really anything online. And my hope is that we're all able to learn from different industries. But even if you just learn one quick takeaway, whether it's building your confidence with sending emails or a simple strategy to make things simpler every time you send an email, or building up a team and having them support you. Like there's so many different ways that we can make email more efficient and more fun and more effective. And so I just get to have quote unquote interview, just conversations with friends and peers of mine, as well as a few solo casts where I just kind of brain dump little lessons of email marketing.
That's great. So Happy Subscribers is available on all podcast players, anywhere you can find podcasts.
Yes, it is.
Good. Go check it out. I know so many of my listeners would absolutely devour that. So thank you for starting it. We appreciate you. So let's dig into the 7 email marketing mistakes. Do you just want to start with mistake number 1? What is that one?
Yeah, the first mistake is under-welcoming your new subscribers. This is something that people just kind of skip over. You'll set up a form, they join your list, you're sending out newsletters, and you're like, oh yeah, I missed nothing. But there's this little opportunity in there between when somebody actually says, yes, subscribe me, and then getting your first email. And that is where I love to recommend having a welcome page. So the form, once submitted, redirects to this page that introduces them to you in a really clear way of like, this is who I am. This is what I create here. This is why I'm glad you're here. And then kind of sends them on to their next step, whether it's going back to the blog or giving them a couple different categories to go browse on the blog, or if you have a product, telling them about it there. Mine has a little video. I love video. I worked in video production for 5 or 6 years between college and starting Duett. And so I just know it's such a quick way to build that know, like, and trust factor, because you actually get to like see the person, hear their voice. And I will say the video has done wonders for having a semi-difficult, hard to pronounce name. So it's Allea, but it's spelled Allea. But by having the video, I joke that I'm like, it's really just there to tell everyone how to say Allea. Like, hey, welcome to my place. But it's fun. I've run into people at conferences who have stopped me in the hallway saying, hey, Allea. And I was like, how do we know each other? Like, because usually everyone would say it wrong. She's like, well, I'm on your email list. And I was like, oh my gosh, it works. So, but that's just one part of it. But within like 60 to 90 seconds, just telling someone like, this is the kind of content create. This is what I hope you'll be able to walk away with from being on my blog. Whether it's, I'm here to make dinners easier, or I'm here to help you learn how to adjust to eating gluten-free, whatever it is, like just saying the thing, because we get so used to doing what we're doing. And you just assume that when people join you that they know that.
Yeah.
And they don't necessarily do.
Yeah. So your welcome page is a unique page on your website, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Yep. So you are sending them from the email to this page on your site, just kind of, hey, this is who I am. Here's a little video. Here's what you can find. And like what else do you include? Or what do you recommend food bloggers include specifically?
Yeah, you could direct them back to your social platforms, like also follow me on Instagram or also follow me on TikTok. That's one way to do it. I would say just keeping them on your website to keep people clicking around would be really, really helpful. And if you have like a membership or a meal plan or something of that sort, at least giving them exposure to that below those links. And to clarify, so correct, it is a page on your site, but what you're going to do is on the back end of the form in whatever platform you're using, it's actually where you want to enter. It's a post URL redirect, post submit redirect, something like that. So once they actually complete the form, it gets redirected. So they're getting redirected while they're getting their first email from you being sent. Does that make sense?
Gotcha. Yep.
Yeah. So it's just like, bam, bam, welcome here. I will say, if you feel like it's kind of an odd thing, like a pop-up to go, it pops up, they sign up and then redirects them, they kind of lose their spot. Like you don't have to put it on the back of every form either. So,
Okay.
And then if you feel like it's a really good introduction, you can also include a link to it in your welcome emails saying, hey, if you haven't seen yet, here's my welcome video. So you can repurpose it that way.
How long is your video?
I think mine is 90 seconds tops.
Okay, so very short.
Yep. And I recorded mine on Loom, which is easy. And then I
free,
think I just
up to a few minutes, right?
Yeah, and free. And so that's what I have in mind. And it's fun. Like I've had clients want to recreate it. It's really just me being a little bit awkward. I'm like, this is me. And I'm a real person in my own house. And it's funny because people have said like, that really resonated. I was like, yep, that's just me being awkward. I'm glad that stood out to you. Yeah. So, and like just short and sweet, like, this is who I am. This is what I provide here. Here's what I hope you get out of following along with my content. And I'm just so glad you're here. Like it doesn't have to be overly thought of. It doesn't have to be highly produced. You don't have to use B-roll if you don't want to. It's just a face and a name for those new people.
Yeah. Your name actually came up yesterday in my mastermind call because of this video. I'm not kidding.
What?
Yeah. So we were talking about email marketing and I can't remember who said it. Somebody was like, have you seen Allie's video? It's amazing. And they were saying exactly what you were, everything you've said about it, just like it's very short and sweet. It's just a really nice personal touch. So yeah, I mean, this is random. I am not making this up. You came up yesterday in our call. So
love that. Well, and that's where like, nobody thinks of this part of the process. We think of like the first email they get or whatever, but that's really fun that somebody noticed it because I think it's an opportunity for sure.
Yeah. Yes. So people should be welcoming people, new subscribers. Don't automatically just know you because they're smart and know everything about you, right? Like you have to fill them in on the details.
Yes.
So do this. And then anything else about that before we move on to mistake number 2?
No, I think that's it.
All right. What is number 2?
Mistake number 2 is sending a boilerplate incentive email or confirmation email. So if you think about it, this is technically the first email they get from you. So this is where you're like, you get to kind of restate what you put in the video or what will be in your welcome sequence. Here's the thing. When you get really clear about who you are, who you're helping, what you want them to experience, you just want to put that everywhere, especially with a new subscriber. It's okay to be a little bit of a broken record. Like, I'm here to make dinner times easier so you can spend more time with your family. I want to see that in your welcome video. I want to see that in your incentive email. I want to see that in your welcome emails as well. So because what we're doing is we're building that familiarity. They still don't know who you are. And so what I've often seen as a mistake is creators just using like the boilerplate confirmation email or incentive email from ConvertKit. Sorry, Kit. But it's really basic. It's like, click here to confirm your subscription, right? And I have a presentation where I show this, where I just like cover up the logo and you're like, it could literally be any creator. And so this is an opportunity for you to really set yourself apart a little bit more. And it's going to be very concise. So just kind of use that pitch, if you will, and just say, I'm so glad you're here. Click here to get your freebie. And then I always like to say, here's what you can expect while you're here. And then it's like 3 bullet points. But the best part is if you have automated emails going out, whether it's the welcome or nurture or quick start guide or whatever, you can promise them that something's coming because it's already coming. You don't
Oh,
have to like
right.
say, you're going to hear from me 6 times a week and da, 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 and you're going to get new
Yeah.
recipes on Tuesdays. You just say like, I'm going to be sending over foolproof recipes now that you're new to the blog. I'm going to send over some of my favorite kitchen tools and hacks and tips. I'm also going to share with you more about my story and why I even created the blog or whatever. And so it gives them kind of an open loop. It's what we use in copywriting, kind of gets their brain like, oh, something's coming. And then they're more likely to kind of pay attention because they want to close that loop. Like, I want the thing that she's just promised me.
That's awesome. It's like this big, I mean, it feels like this big complicated system, but it's not. It just is really simple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
You just have to do the work. You have to like create the page and, like put in a little bit of extra love and time into all of this. But once you have it set, this is what I love about email. Once you have kind of those big things set in motion, you don't have to do a whole lot of work to upkeep them. You just like little tweaks over time. But, like upfront time is all you really need to invest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and so I had originally given this presentation over these 7 common marketing mistakes, email marketing mistakes, to a room of 6 and 7-figure bloggers. Some of them had multiple 7-figure businesses. And like at the end, they're all like, how have I not thought of this? How have I not done this? So I don't want to like shame anyone for not having done it, because the reality is like what you're doing is working to an extent. So this is me who has a hyper-focused look at that new subscriber journey and wanting to give you like, these are places you can inject more clarity, more personality, more friendliness and warmth, right? So like you might already have your forms and then you create one welcome page and you just redirect a bunch of them there and you're already taking it just a notch up than what you had before. Right. So it's also like there's, blogging is sequential. Once you learn something, you're like, okay, now I apply it to this. And then I learn something more and I apply it even more. And so without feeling like, oh, I have to do this perfectly every time, or like, yeah, just definitely don't beat yourself up that you don't have this. I'm presenting them more as opportunities.
Right. No email shaming. And I know you're not here to email shame, but it is so easy to let something like this slip through the cracks because bloggers have a lot of freaking stuff going on. So grace for yourself if you are falling into that category, right? But, put it on your calendar and take some action and things will improve in your email world. Yeah. Okay. Well, what is the mistake? Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, especially in this season where like email always crops up of like, oh crud, we need to do more with email. Like if you're going to be putting your time and energy into it, then that's where these details really like shine or going to like cumulatively impact your open rates, your click rates, especially with this next mistake, which is not having a welcome sequence.
Oh, so talk about that.
Yeah, this is what I consider like your housewarming gift for your new subscribers. If you think about like going to an Airbnb, you know how they have like, some of them will have like a folder of here's what you can find in the area. Yes. Here's within walking distance. Here are my favorite local restaurants or whatnot. Like that's what we get to do for all of your new subscribers. And I've been working with food bloggers since 2019. And what I hear over and over and over again, like, yes, email is this way they can make money, but they're also feeling like it's this way that they can provide valuable resources to their subscribers, but they have not taken advantage of it. You have these resources, you have this like wonderful content. You just haven't figured out a way to actually deliver it in a way that makes sense. And so that's where I get to work with my clients. Like, come on in, tell me about what content you have. And as somebody who's not intimately involved in your business every day, here's how I would piece this out. And oftentimes as a creator, you're like working with anybody on the outside of your business. You're like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. How did I not think of that?
I know.
But yeah, so this welcome sequence can be anything from like, it could be one email, honestly, if you're just getting started, but it could be 3 to 5. I had 6 in mind for a long time. And it's just a little bit more of a concentrated experience for new subscribers. And I like to call it like your welcome, or like it's kind of like a brand hub. So like, no matter where anybody comes from, if it's the creator network, they haven't even been on your site, to somebody who sees a pop-up or somebody who listens to you on a podcast or whatnot, sees you on Instagram or TikTok. It's that we want to make sure everybody has this really solid introduction to who you are and the kind of experience you want them to have. I always ask my clients, like, what's one thing you want everybody on your email list to get? And it could be a blog post. It could be a video training. It could be like a handful of kitchen hacks that, like, once you know this, it's going to make everything so much easier. It could be a checklist of Dominican ingredients. You know, like if you're new here, here's what you need to be able to make most of these recipes. So we get to think creatively about that. And so, yeah, consider yourself like an Airbnb host of like, if somebody's coming into my space, where do I direct them?
Right. And I think sometimes you just need to be asked that from another perspective. I feel like when we ask ourselves a question like that, it's like, I don't know, what do I want everyone to know? Or where do I want to direct everyone? But having you ask me that, I was like, oh, I kind of know exactly what I would say. So
right?
Isn't that funny that an outside perspective is all it takes sometimes to just, to gain clarity?
Yeah, because you've been building things for so long. And so when you actually have to look at like, okay, I do have a lot of resources to choose from. Which one even makes the most sense for all new subscribers? Like for me, I have like a content calendar that I created in 2020, and I'm giving it away for free all the time. I'm just like, go do it, go get this. Like that's the one that I wish everyone had, because the struggle of knowing what emails to send and when is like a huge hurdle for so many people. So if you're listening to this and you're like, I'm like, just know you are not alone. And that's what I want people to know when they join my list. Like, you are not alone. It does require kind of some habits. Here are some ways that you can make it easier. And here's a resource for that. So kind of the reason why I recommend a welcome sequence in general too, because you're like, well, can't I just send them to my newsletter? You can. And if you're consistently sending out newsletters, that's a great idea. I will support it, I suppose. But I would still say you could have one welcome email that's just like short and sweet and to the point. But especially if you're not sending out newsletters very often, they might forget who you are in 2 weeks when you do send out a newsletter. Or another thing I've seen with welcome sequences is people thinking they need a separate one for every opt-in or type of resource that they're going through.
Yeah.
And I just think that that's making it far too complicated for you, especially. And then especially when you involve like the technical side of email, you're like, what if we just sent everybody the same thing? It's like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, email's hard enough as it is. We don't necessarily need separate ones. Or worrying about if they're in both. And that's where it comes back to the welcome sequence kind of being like a brand hub. So if people are coming in from Instant Pot, or they're coming in from Air Fryer, or they're coming in from like dairy free or whatever, the hub is where you tell them, oh yeah, I also have this, or I also have this. Like, click here if you're interested in this. So it's kind of cross-selling, if you will, to other types of content, but also other platforms. Once they're on your email list, send them on back to Instagram or wherever it is that you're most active, and make the most of your community there as well. We want them to be on both, right?
Yeah, right.
So,
yeah, simple is best. So that is a huge relief to hear you say that we don't need to create a separate sequence for absolutely every opt-in. Now, I do have a question about your welcome page that you were talking about. How do you incorporate that into the welcome sequence? So you mentioned linking to it from your welcome sequence, or how do you introduce that?
Yeah, so I don't link back to my welcome page. I just use it for most of my opt-ins, but I actually think I use it for all of them.
Okay.
But if you were like, there's a chance that people join my list and they haven't seen this, you could just include it in your welcome. Like, so glad you're here. And then if you haven't yet, here's a little 90-second welcome with my real face. Like, tell them, like, get them to click on it to be able to like see you, hear you. You can include a little GIF, if you will, of the video to get them to click through and just say like, hey, if you haven't received your welcome from me yet, it's right here, And so it just kind of doubles down on that personability, but using a video on a page you've already created.
Okay. Makes it much more clear. Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. So if you don't have a welcome sequence, get one up, even if it is just one email.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. It's one of the other things I want to mention with this, and this was really kind of felt gutsy to say this in front of this room when I first gave this presentation to all of these really successful, like 7-figure entrepreneurs, which by the way, I am not. So I'm like, why? am I here? But
Because you're awesome.
because of, well, thank you. But one of the things that I told them, and I was like, this feels gutsy, is telling them, like, I didn't know who 90% of you were before I walked into this room today. Like, as big as you are online, a person who finds you today or tomorrow may have never heard of you. And so you kind of need to leave your ego at the door when you think about your new subscriber journey. Like, basically, we don't want to assume that anyone knows who you are. So, like, if pretend you're introducing yourself to someone like who's brand new, what would you tell them? And even if you've had a welcome sequence before, sometimes that changes with your brand. So just like think through it like with a clear lens of like, has my brand shifted? Am I less this and more this, less veggie packed and more meal plans or whatever? Like, and so just making sure that this first introduction feels really accurate for who you are as a brand now.
Yeah, that's such a good point that even if you are a huge blogger and you assume that everyone knows you're a vegan blogger, vegan dessert blogger, whatever, that is not true. There are so many people in the world who have not found you yet and who have no idea who you are. So over explain and don't ever assume. I love that.
Yeah.
Such a good reminder. All right. Are we ready to move on to mistake number 4?
Yes. So this is where things get a little bit more technical. What was it on the podcast? It came out technical, like Olivia Newton-John. And I was like, I'm going to need to make that a segment.
Love it.
But the mistake number 4 is failing to personalize your content. So I'm not in the camp that like everything needs to be hyper segmented, because especially in the food blogging space, oh my goodness, it could get so hyper segmented that you can't even keep track of it. Like, oh, I'm not going to send, egg-free recipes to these people, but I'm going to send, like it just gets really, really complicated. So at some point, everybody's going to get a little bit of something that doesn't necessarily directly apply to them if you have that kind of site. But what we can do is allow people to choose what they want to get from you. So if we don't go quite as granular, I think about my client, Jason, who, when we first started working with him, he really just had air fryer and Instant Pot recipes. Now he has expanded into stovetop and oven. But at the time it was like, if you don't have either of these appliances, you can't make any of these recipes, right? And so what we did is we just allowed people to say, I don't have an air fryer. And we're like, that's fine. And we just skip sending them air fryer recipes, both in the nurture sequence that's automated. We just filter them out, as well as new emails going out. We could just skip anybody who doesn't have an air fryer, just doesn't get this air fryer recipe, because at that point it just didn't make sense if you don't have the appliance. So that was a pretty cool. We use Kit for that, so that each individual email you can filter out. You can say exclude anyone who has this tag from getting that one email, and they just skip over and go to the next one. Okay. So that's one example of personalizing your content. Thoughts, questions?
No, I mean, I think that makes sense, especially with the appliances. What I guess, like you said earlier, it can be so complicated because there can be like methods of cooking or ingredients or seasonal, there's so many different. So how do you even decide how to narrow it down? Like you could go so granular and narrow it down to a million things. So
yeah. Well, I first want to acknowledge the reason why we want to do that. And so it comes from such a good place, right? Like we want to give people this really wonderful experience of being on our list and not bother them with the things that don't apply to them. So it comes from this really great place. It's the execution that makes it tricky. So it's one thing to exclude people from your different nurture emails, but will you remember to exclude them from your broadcast emails, your newsletters, if a recipe is entirely something that they wouldn't want?
Yeah.
So I just kind of encourage my clients to take it up a little bit more to a macro level, like vegetarian, non-vegetarian. Like that's a lot easier to think about every time you send out a newsletter or you repurpose it into a evergreen nurture email as well. So that's one way. Otherwise, part of it is just knowing, like, if people are going to be on this list and they have a lot of dietary needs, like they're going to see some things that aren't going to apply to them. But what we can do is make it really easy for them to scroll and skim the email and know if it's helpful for them. So something that we've done with some of our copywriting clients is under the name of the recipe, having like a smaller header that just says like vegan 30-minute stovetop. Like just make it really easy to know this recipe is these types of things.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? As I talk with my hands on a podcast.
No, I am such a hand talker. I like knock over my microphone all the time. Yeah, it does. I just think of sites like mine that are just everything. I'm not a super hyper-focused niche, so I don't know. It just feels overwhelming to me to do this as someone who creates basically everything.
Well, and honestly, in that case, Megan, I would say everybody just gets everything. Like that's also okay. You know, it's different if it's like, I don't know. Yeah, something where it's like it's a dietary need. Feels a lot different. But, and at the time when I worked with Jason, he had all these two different appliances. Whereas like now that we've built it out with more generalized, like anybody can make a stovetop, anybody can make an oven recipe, everybody gets those emails. We're not nixing those. So at some base level, if someone's on your list, they're going to get a variety of content from you.
Yeah.
And you get to be like what I call the managing editor. You get to decide everybody gets this. And that's a decision that you've made. And it's okay to have like a kind of smorgasbord of emails. I think that's where understanding your brand promise to them, that like, here's what you're going to get from me, that feels consistent throughout.
Yeah.
Right. So just keeping that on brand. The other thing that with, personalizing your content is also allowing them to opt out of the frequency of emails. So say you have automated emails that go out Mondays and Wednesdays, and you have new emails go out Fridays, Sundays, and they're like, no, I just want the new content. Great. You can just remove them from those automated workflows and they just get your new content. The tricky part is you can't let them opt out of both, because then why the heck are they on your list?
Right. Right.
So that's where like we still get to say like by default, you're just going to get all of my new content then.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, well, I feel like this is kind of why I want to say I've been lazy, but I think it's more just that, what you just said. It's just easier to include everybody and everything for my personal situation. I know that everyone is different, and but yeah, I definitely don't personalize my content, Allie. I'm so sorry to disappoint you on this mistake.
That's okay. Oh, see, no email shame. We're not going to do that.
I just felt, I felt bad, and I shouldn't.
No. And well, that's part of it, Megan, is just like having this conversation. And then once you're like, this is okay, then you just don't worry about it. You've made the decision. You don't have to wonder like, am I serving my people well? Because you've thought through the pros and cons. And like when you're a small team, like guys, we are not Target. We are not Eddie Bauer. Like we are not sending 40 emails a day based on people's link activity, like to the nth degree. Like we're not using those kinds of platforms. That's not how we're built. And so that's where like at some point you just have to say, is it worth this level of granular investment?
Yeah, right.
And so,
okay. Thank you. Yeah. I feel better. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I feel like there was something else you were going to say about personalizing content.
Yeah, something else on the technical side. What's super cool is, so like I have my client, Christine, we created a 7-day meal planning secrets opt-in, right? And so in emails where we were mentioning meal planning at all, we would pitch them to that opt-in. So they're already on her list, but it's like, hey, if you haven't seen this really wonderful resource, sign up over here for 7 straight days of this. But what's cool is that in Kit and in MailerLite, for sure, you can exclude people who've already gone through that quick start guide or whatnot. You can exclude them from even seeing that messaging.
Oh.
So same applies for a product. If they've bought something from you and you have a purchase tag, you can have the pitch in the email, but because they have that tag in their profile, when they receive that email, they will not see the pitch at all.
Oh, that's so cool.
It's like my favorite thing. I joke it's like about like National Treasure. You know how he has the fun glasses that he's like, I see it, I don't see it, I see more. Like you're like, what? And so that's one of my favorite things about personalizing your content as well. So yeah, or even just like, hey, I saw you came over from the bread baking quick start guide, you know, when they're entering into the welcome sequence. Like there's so much you can do. But then like the only people who see that are the people that have the tag for the bread baking guide. Like, so that's where it gets really juicy. And it's awesome for like your automated emails. Cause like you said earlier, you set it up one time and then it just continues to be this really fruitful experience for your new subscribers.
Yeah. That's cool. That's really cool that you can do that. I didn't know about that, but get in there, dig in there and find all these gems. I feel like these are just such good gems once you start getting into, you know, like really working this stuff. So anything else about personalizing content?
I mean, just as if you're going to go look that up within like Kit, it's called liquid tagging. I call it conditional content. They're the same thing. And then in MailerLite, I don't know what it's called necessarily, but if you hover over your section, there's a little eyeball. And when you click on it, you can say show to everyone who has this tag or exclude from anybody who is not part of this group. Sorry, not tags. Groups in MailerLite. So that would be like if you're like, okay, Allie, I want to go check it out. Those are the places to go.
Awesome. All right, Allie, what is mistake number 5?
Yeah, mistake number 5 is not sending traffic to the top of your funnel from within your list. So oftentimes we launch something like maybe it's like a free 3-day meal plan that leads to a paid plan, right? And you launch it to your list or you make it available on your website, but you're not really repeating it at all or like talking about it anymore in your nurture content, your evergreen sequence that goes out like once a week, or even in your newsletters. So this is my encouragement to you of like, oh, be promoting that 3-day free meal plan. Put that in your nurture sequences, put that in your newsletter because it leads to the top of your funnel over and over again. And just because someone wasn't ready for it when they first opted in doesn't mean that like 3 months later, they wouldn't be like, oh yeah, I've been meaning to try that.
So how often do you mention it? I mean, is it something that you can do weekly? And do you feel like that's intrusive?
Oh no, it's a free thing. Intrusive.
It's a free offering.
Like, I tried to make that rhyme and I couldn't, but like it's free, you know? And so you can just tell people about it. Like, and I would maybe swap it out with some other freebies. Like, hey, just want to make sure you know about this guide or whatever, especially if you have that conditional content. For the people who've already done it, they just won't see it and it's just reducing noise for them. But I've also seen strategies, especially in the service provider world, and this is why I love talking about this on Happy Subscribers, because I hope that we can learn from other industries. But at the end of an email, basically after you sign off, a lot of service providers will say like, okay, and here are 3 ways I can help you. 1, 2, and 3. And so it's like a free, smaller paid offer and maybe a bigger, like book a discovery call with me. So that could be a place where you're like, if you haven't yet, try the free meal plan. If you have tried it and you love it, get the next meal plan here. And then the third one can be, and I have a cookbook or whatever. It doesn't have to be 3. Right. But yeah, in that case, it's just showing up in every email. So they see it.
Okay. And then you can put that on social media as well.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yes. Oh, can we have a little sidebar for social media?
Absolutely.
Because here's what I've heard from so many of my clients and folks on my free roundtable events. Like, they're like, well, my lead magnets don't work. My lead magnets don't work. And then I'm like, well, where are you sharing them? And I go, sharing them? I'm not sharing them. And it's like, okay, so herein lies the problem. Like, we need to get them in front of people. So my recommendation has been share your free resources with your social media audience. Just weave them in the same way you would pieces of content. Just don't forget about them because, right, Instagram is not a really reliable place to reach out to your audience. If you're selling something, right? Like we want them on your email list. And so just weave this in there. You don't have to have a whole, like, how do I grow my list strategy beyond that if you're not doing it yet. Like just turn it up a little bit and start sharing about your freebies on your posts. You can use ManyChat or Grocer's List or whatever tools to be able to get them onto your list as well. So giving them reasons to join.
Yes. Yes. Love it. So love the sidebar. Thank you for that.
Thank you. I needed to get that off my chest.
Yeah. So getting people to the top of the funnel is very important. And then that's probably something that people don't think about either. Like, oh yeah, I do need them to go at the top and go all the way back down, right?
Well, yeah. And I hear, I do audience research for my Duett debut clients. And it's so interesting how many responses sometimes are like, oh, I didn't know so-and-so had a cookbook. And so many people on their list didn't even know they had a cookbook, right?
Wow.
And you're like, my client looks at me, she goes, so we should probably tell them about the cookbook. Like, we should probably do that, right? Like we should put that in the welcome sequence, you know, so even if they're not buying it, they know that it's there and then they're going to hear about it here and there and everywhere. And that, I think, because we're so afraid of selling, we don't talk about things. And so it's like, it's just talking about it and making sure that they know that it exists. So, similarly.
Yeah.
Getting vocal. Oh,
and maybe it's
with
just,
that.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say with that, something else, and I heard this back when I was in the personal finance space. I heard it in the food blogging space. A lot of times we think, oh, I wrote that blog post 2 years ago, or I wrote that cookbook 5 years ago. And they say it as though it doesn't maintain value for many years. And so that's another thing that, like, if you're like, oh, it's like, oh no, get that in front of people. Like, I don't care if it was published in 2019. It's still a cookbook and it's super resourceful and the right person will still find it really helpful.
That's the good thing about blogging and writing cookbooks is that they really don't get outdated. I mean, everything you do can be reconsumed at any time, I feel like, unless it's something, I don't know, like here's what you need to eat during the pandemic or something like that. Something very specific. Yeah. But most cookbooks and blog posts can be reused. We need reminders of that. So thank you. Another good reason you're here to remind us, Allie. What is mistake number 6?
Yeah, mistake number 6 is keeping cold subscribers on your list. So chances are what you're doing right now is you're either just removing cold subscribers outright, just like if they're cold, they're gone, delete them, or you leave them on your list for way too long. And I know that if you're using Flowdesk and you don't pay more with more subscribers, you're kind of like, whatever, I'll just keep them on there. I know that some folks have received terrible instruction from other email marketers. None that I know. All the email marketing people I know are awesome, but they're like, well, yeah, at least if I'm emailing these cold subscribers, at least there's name recognition. I'm showing up in their inbox. And I'm like, sir, if they have not opened your email in 2 years, we have a bigger problem. Like that name recognition is going to do nothing. But what happens is that actually impacts of course, your data. So if you have cold subscribers, 22% of your list are cold, that's impacting your open rates, your click rates, and really your understanding of the health of your list. And it can also impact your deliverability because if those emails are going to someone's spam, that's reporting back to the email, I don't know, gods and goddesses. I don't know what they're called, but the people who decide whether an email goes through to an actual inbox. So when it comes to having a cleaner list, there's a way to do it, kind of a best practices. And so I recommend setting up a re-engagement sequence. So like a 2 email sequence, or if you set up a workflow or in Flowdesk, you send them out as individual emails. But basically, anyone who clicks gets removed from the cold subscriber group or a tag. And then the people who are left after a couple weeks, they get the first email, they wait 7 days, they get a reminder. If they still don't engage after another 7 days, whoever's still cold, then you feel good removing them. And then what's left is a clean, happy list of happy subscribers who want to be there. And that's what we want.
Yes. We were just talking about this in our mastermind call yesterday again. I can't remember which member was talking about it, but I think her default inside of, was it Kit? I believe was like 180 days or something like that. If somebody hasn't opened one of your emails in 180 days, that you should consider deleting them from the list. I just felt like that was so long. Like 180, isn't that like 6 months or something?
That's 6 months. Yeah.
I feel like it should be much shorter than that.
Yes. So we have a couple strategies. So with removing your cold subscribers, if you don't have something set up to auto clean them, which we'll talk about second, this is like you kind of just send it out to everyone, get a clean list. But you kind of need to do this regularly because you're going to have older subscribers who then who stop engaging. Can you hear my cat playing?
No, I cannot.
Okay. Well, she's having the joy of her life over here with a little ball with a bell in it.
Go Kitty.
Everyone say hi to Tilly. Tilly, say hi to everyone. But there are different ways to kind of keep your list cleaner as people are joining as well. So what you can do is you can say in Kit, for instance, have an automation that says anyone who joins any form, like enters the automation, and then you can wait 15 days or 30 days is what I'd recommend. And you can decide kind of how conservative you want to be with like, if they haven't clicked, I just unsubscribe them. Like I'm not even going to try and re-engage them because they're so new. If they haven't engaged with my welcome sequence and my first couple newsletters, just boot them. And then another option would be, wait 30 days and then send them a couple re-engagement emails. And then if they still haven't engaged, boot them gently to the unsubscribe section of the automation. So can you see how those two kind of work in tandem?
Yeah.
Like one is because not everyone's going to get added to that. And you could go massive. We've done this for ours is like you wait 30 days and then still those people who were engaged, we wait another 90 days. And if they still haven't engaged, then we kind of evaluate it there. Like you can set it up to be as like complicated as you want.
Right.
But that's kind of why I like to have both. Like one that you just do a little bit more manually and one that's running automatically.
Okay.
If you don't want it to apply to every form, you can also just say like, these are the forms I want this to apply to. For instance, like the send me this recipe, for instance, or Slickstream or Grow. Like if those are platforms where you're like, these people just don't seem like they're sticking around very long for whatever reason, like you could also just kind of hand select those particular forms are the ones that you wait like 15 to 30 days.
Okay.
Remove them. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And yeah. So, I mean, it's not a one size fits all situation. You can kind of figure out your own system and stick with it. But the general rule here is getting rid of those cold subscribers because doesn't that just make your email list unhealthy?
Yeah. Yep. I kind of, when I audit my clients' stuff, I put it under list health. And so we want your list to be full of people who want to be there. I guess kind of along these lines is also the idea of, do we require double opt-in? That kind of comes into this too. I hadn't thought of that till right now. Well, I have a conversation with Megan and my mind is just like, what about this? Because this is another question I often hear and then I discuss with clients through our audit. And it's just kind of tricky because I prefer to be a little bit more conservative. Like I want people to click to say that they want my opt-in or they want to be on my list and just have a smaller list. But I also see a good valid reason for saying like, okay, they've opted in. I don't need them to confirm. I'm just having them on there. I'm going to choose to clean them off after 15 to 30 days a little bit more aggressively if they don't engage. I don't think either are wrong. One might be a little bit more legal than the other.
Yeah.
Nobody could see my face being like, maybe that's important. But as long as it's really clear, of course, that they can't unsubscribe at any time. That unsubscribe link is clear. I know I had a gal on Happy Subscribers who's an attorney, my friend Jamie, who says like, yeah, having like a checkbox at the point of opt-in is what's legal, especially if you have any Canadians on your list. And so it's just kind of a wild west out there. Like we have GDPR. And I think that's kind of where maybe my basis, I don't know, that's like a sliver of why I like double opt-ins, but ultimately I just want your list to be full of people who have chosen to be there.
Yes.
So it's kind of a gamble. I mean, like it's a coin toss and I can see a client's reason one way or another. And it's ultimately up to you. Just knowing like, oh, I'm getting all these people on the list and they keep unsubscribing. Okay, let's go to the source and let's turn on that double opt-in then just to make life easier for you and the health of your list.
Okay, great. Moving on to our last mistake. What is mistake number 7?
Oh, it's the least sexy of all the mistakes. I'm really glad I saved this one for last. No, it's the mistake is not knowing what's being sent to your subscribers and how. I say it's not that sexy because I'm an SOP person. I love standard operating procedures and most people don't. But it's this idea of like, if you have all of the information about what's happening with your email list in your head, it's kind of dangerous. Like, because first of all, how are you going to inform your team or have some sort of system set up so that it's really clear what's all happening in your email marketing? So I recommend having an SOP, a standard operating procedure of like, what automations are turned on and what days of the week do they send out? And then what days of the week are you sending out newsletters? Like at its most basic, you should know what those are. And so, yeah, like even if you do have a team member and it's all in their head, that's not super helpful either because what if that person changes roles within your business? I have a team member who's going to be on maternity leave. So like, we just don't want your business to stop. And all it takes is writing it down. So that's why I'm
Yeah.
like, it's not that sexy, but like it is a lot of people just hold it in their heads. And that also can be really stressful for you because you're like, what day does my automated email go out that I set up 2 years ago? Like just
Yeah.
writing it down means you don't have to wonder or have to dig it up to think about it again.
Yeah. And even getting help with that, just if you do have somebody helping you, just getting it on paper is so valuable. But yeah, I can see what you mean. Like there's this sequence going on in the sequence, and then I send out these weekly emails, and like, ooh, that can get really just complicated in your mind. So getting it on paper is not sexy, but valuable.
That's sexy, but super helpful, right? We have SOPs for like a checklist before a blog post goes live. Thinking through the same thing applies to your email marketing.
Yeah. I love it. These are all great mistakes and great solutions to the mistakes. Is there anything else you want to mention, Allie, before we say goodbye?
I mean, I have a bunch of resources. So if you've never written your welcome sequence before, I have a freebie on that called Your First Welcome Sequence. So you can find those at duett.co/eatblogtalk, and it's DUETT.co, and eBlog Talk all squished together. So I have a bunch of resources there that I'm really excited to provide for you guys. And you can connect with me there or find me on Instagram at Allea Grummert. But yeah.
I love it. I hope you guys go look at all the awesome stuff Ellie has going on and listen to her podcast. I'm so excited about your podcast. I'm going to go listen to. Allie, do you have either a favorite quote or words of inspiration to leave us with today?
Yes, I do. And I genuinely can't remember what I said on the last podcast, so it might be the same one, but it's my favorite for a reason. And this is probably not word for word, but from Julia Child, the chef, the baker. She said, whatever you're interested in, remain tremendously interested in it. And I heard that right out of college, and it just gave me so much permission to I love music. Like I know way too much about certain artists and things like that. And it's why I was able to start a personal finance blog and just geek out on budgeting and then get into email marketing and be able to have a podcast that's 100% about email marketing. And to not feel weird about it. Like everyone has their things that they're interested in. And so I love that it's the permission giving of whatever you're interested in, remain tremendously interested in it.
I absolutely love that. What a great way to end this amazing chat. Thank you for taking the time for us today. We're so grateful for you and your interest in email marketing and for sharing it with the rest of us.
Absolutely.
So we'll put together a show notes page for you, Allie, if you want to go peek at those and all the resources that Allie has for you. We'll put your podcast and everything in there. You can head to eatblogtalk.com/duett with 2 T's and then number 2. So yeah, everyone go check Allie out. Is there anything else you want to mention, Allie, before we say goodbye?
No, just that I'm grateful to be here, Megan. Thank you so much for supporting the food blogging and just, the space. And I know how much of a helpful resource you are to food bloggers. I'm grateful
thank you. That was so kind. Well, thanks, Allie, and thank you for listening, food bloggers. I will see you next time. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this topic, be sure to watch the video shown on the screen. See you next time.